Now, romantics all over the world are celebrating Valentine's today, but are they really? The expectations of this day bring joy to some and lots of anguish to the men. And the attitude towards love and relationships has certainly shifted as online dating and fancy mobile phone apps have taken over the scene. But what about the holiday that historically celebrates love? Is it true that as one gets older, the sentimentality that comes with Valentine's Day fades? Is Valentine's Day still relevant to you? Remember, we had that conversation from 6 o'clock, 14th of February. What is it to you? Some of you were kind of cheeky and were like, 14th is the deadline to register as a voter. What about the rest of you? And we're delighted to seek thoughts from none other than Dr. Chris Hart. A very good morning to you.
Good morning.
And of course, Dr. Hart is the author of Single and Searching, How to Find and Marry Mr. Right. You can read his column in the Sunday Nation every week and follow him on Twitter at Cool Kenya. Check out his Sunday Nation articles on www.nyumbayangu.com. Now, Valentine's Day, every year is supposed to be a big thing, but we're saying this year it's looking kind of muted.
Yeah, I think it is. I think everybody's distracted. We're laughing at Trump. We're full of all the usual politics and all the stuff. People are just not paying much attention to it this year.
But usually, why do we make such a big hullabaloo over one simple day?
Well, dare I say it, it's the women who make the fuss, isn't it? It's you women.
We're the ones.
Yeah, it's the girlfriends, it's the wives who make all the fuss about that. And the men hate it. The men really, they wish it would go away.
And you're telling me that's because it's the one day why men do not like Valentine's Day?
Yeah, it's because it's the women are in control. They're the ones who say, we are going out, we're going to do this, we're going to this place, I'm going to wear these things, you're going to get me some flowers,
But you have 364 days, why can't you give me one?
Yeah, right. Well, the guys don't like it, that's for sure.
Okay. Now, of course, we've spoken about this. We always talk about Valentine's around these times, but do you feel like they change from year to year? Or is it just a ritual? You go and like Christmas tree, you dust it off and it's Valentine's.
A few years ago, people were being very inventive about Valentine's Day. I remember, go back 10 or 15 years, the hotels were laying on new stuff, new ideas. People, they were packing them in. At the moment, it seems very flat. It's as if nobody's got any ideas.
Yes.
So people are doing the same thing
old
all
dinner
over again, and nobody's really very enthusiastic about that. And of course, the restaurants do make it a bit dull, don't they? A special Valentine menu, code for less choice, more money,
more price,
and everybody dresses the same, and everybody's very quiet. It's rather dull, isn't it? So yeah, I think we need a little bit of invigorating change.
We need to get out of the box. Okay. Now, of course, as we talk about the relevance of Valentine, we captured the thoughts of different people on this celebration, but we can't avoid the reality that there's a very strong commercial value, like we're saying. These days, it's, come to Kempinski for X amount.
Yeah, millions.
Yeah, last year we had millions.
Yeah, helicopters and God knows what.
I did I hear about it? I don't know about helicopters this time. Now, flowers, of course, are a particular favorite. Though I don't know whose, because like somebody sent me a text in the morning. Let me see if I can find it. And he put me in trouble because he wanted me to sort out his problem. And his question was, good morning, Angie. Being on a tight budget, should I buy flowers for my lively wife or do I throw a surprise treat her way? What would you have advised them to do?
Well, especially if money is a bit tight, I don't think you should be seduced by all the commercialism. I think you can do a lot of very nice things at Valentine's and spend little or no money. But even with the hawkers on the streets, a single rose doesn't cost that much, does it? I think he could find a rose for his wife.
So he could balance the two. So I told him, go for the treat. She won't forget that. The flowers may dry up, but if you do something exceptional...
that is true. But there is something about giving a flower to a lady on Valentine's Day.
Okay, so guys, I stand corrected. But Angie's the kind of girl, even a bunch of skuma wiki works wonders for me. Because I just see the spinach and I'm like, I can blend this in my juice. So hey... so flowers are important. At least we've made that very clear. Now, these days we hear people, we're talking about Kempinski, people booking hotel rooms for millions. Now, another reality is that for numerous couples, today is, like we said, it's a make or break. We were having a silent discussion before we went live, and Dr. Chris was mentioning that this is a very tricky day to actually go out.
It can be. A lot of people fall out. You know, you see some hilarious scenes. You know, a couple sitting in the restaurant, everyone's really quiet, and they're bickering. They're trying to have a little fight. And I've seen the waiters packing up food and off they go. You know, it can get quite funny because people have such expectations about a thing like Valentine's, and you can't really meet them. Expectations are so high that people are always disappointed. So yeah, it can get a bit funny, Valentine's.
So is it because we don't express, I have high expectations and I don't give you a clue to what I'm expecting? Is it that the couples don't communicate the expectations, or where is the problem there?
I don't know. I mean, you have to bear in mind who Valentine's Day is really aimed at. It's really aimed at quite new couples, isn't it? I mean, married couples, for example, do Valentine's Day in a completely different way, if they do it at all, don't they? Lots of people who are in a fairly new relationship sort of depend on Valentine's Day to prove their love for one another. Well, I mean, you're on a loser straight away with something like that, aren't you? Whatever it is you were expecting, you can't get it. And so the guy perhaps hasn't got enough money, or the girl hasn't got the prettiest dress, or something will go wrong.
Or he doesn't have the right imagination, because sometimes you'll see people expecting Valentine's Day is supposed to start with buy her flowers and surprise her at work with a basket of goodies, you know, and maybe after that then find a way to, you know, the things she's expecting and reality they don't conform. I want people at work to say I've gotten this big bouquet of roses. It doesn't happen. I'm waiting for you to tell me you're going to send me up to this special place. And maybe, like you're saying, the pocket isn't able. I
know. And I mean, you know, it's funny. Ordinary people, real people with normal personalities do normal things on Valentine's Day. The real productions are done by the Trumps of this world, you know, the narcissists who produce this tremendous show of something or other all that day. And actually, you should be a little bit suspicious if your boyfriend does something.
Thank you. Maybe it's all about him.
Yes.
Check me out. I can do.
Right. I can splash the money about, you know.
Now, there's a new twist in the dynamics, and these days women are more financially able, you know, and are able to do things for themselves. So where a woman can treat herself, you know, with whatever it is that she needs, what happens to the man in her life?
You know,
because we're not equal.
No, but it all comes back to the real idea about Valentine's, which is not spending money. It's actually being romantic. And I hear lovely stories of people doing very, very simple and lovely things that don't cost anything, really. I've known people sort of sit on the balcony and watch the sunrise and remember things that have happened in their lives, you know. I've known people take a little picnic into the Arboretum for lunch and things like that. Again, you see, really no money is involved.
Yeah, but it's a memory that matters.
But you never forget it.
Absolutely.
You sit under a tree and just listen to the birds and eat a little bit something or other. You're going to remember that for a very long time.
I hope people are taking notes. So remember, it's about the memories. Even when you think back, childhood or whatever it is in your life, it's what happened to you then. So it's not the $1 million flight or whatever. It's, can you imagine that? Just looking at the sun go up or having a simple picnic lunch at the Arboretum. At least there are no monkeys there. City Park would be disaster. It is the 14th day of February, the last day you can register as a voter, but there's also some other significance. It's known as Valentine's Day. And in studio we have with us Dr. Hart, who's a psychologist and a relationship expert. Now, welcome back. Now, there's a theory that as one gets older, the things that matter to them in their youth, such as Valentine's Day celebrations, for many no longer matter as much. But before we get to Dr. Hart's response, our breakfast team was on the streets of Nairobi seeking views on the relevance of Valentine's Day to you. And this is what you told them.
My name is Magdalene Milimu. I don't believe in Valentine's Day. Why would we wait for one day in 365 days in a year to celebrate love? I believe Valentine's is every day for me and the man I love.
I'm Benedict Mudhuri Mose. Valentine to me is irrelevant simply because each and every day to my wife is a Valentine Day. I love her each and every day. I do surprise her anytime because she's my wife.
My name is Priska Chepkoech. Okay, personally, I don't believe in Valentine's because if I love my man, it means I love him from Jan to death, not only on Tuesday.
There we go. And interestingly, all three views you just heard simply do not see the big deal. What do you think, Chris?
What do I think?
Yes.
I think they're being a bit cynical. I think Valentine's Day is a good excuse to just do something a little different. It's not about, you know, the only romantic day of the year. It's a day to just make an excuse and just do something that's not every day. So it might be about, you don't necessarily have to go out. It could be just that you do something at home that is really sweet. You could just send one or two much nicer SMSs than usual. There are all sorts of small things that you can do just because it's Valentine's Day. And it is nice just to say, okay, it's a special day, I'm going to do something special for you. It's not about money, it's not about a big production, it's just about saying something just that little bit special because it is that special day.
So yeah, it could be a special day. I like the idea of like a text. It could be even so that you're in the same house, good morning, beautiful.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, if you do give each other Valentine's wishes and you do small things like bring her a cup of tea in bed and all the other things and just say a few nice things just because it's Valentine's Day, those will be well remembered.
Brownie points for later.
Definitely.
Okay, so we need to invest. Now, do you think that we still live in a conservative society where many people well, I don't know if it's unwilling, but are challenged, like you're saying, in expressing themselves? I don't think we're very good at saying I love you because, or you really mean a lot to me.
Yeah, I mean, our parents' generation were very bad at expressing themselves. I think they were brought up to be very quiet, very silent, not to express emotions and so on. And of course, they brought us up, so there's still a little residue of that. I mean, social media and all the soaps on TV and so on have sort of broken it down a bit, but I still think people have a lot of difficulty saying the magic words.
Yes, especially the three.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's easier to say I like or I something, but the love word is difficult.
Yeah. I mean, very successful couples that have been around for a very long time say that they love one another. They say it out loud very frequently, several times a day, many times a day. It just becomes one of those little things that they say. But it's very noticeable that young couples that are only just starting out, it's a big production, is it? The first day you say that L word.
And the pressure between, will they say it back? It's a horrible place to be.
Yeah, it is. I really sympathise with people about that. It's hard. I mean, in a perfect world, we would teach social skills like that in school, wouldn't we? So that people would know how to do relationships.
So maybe what can we teach? How do we teach people to express? Because what you're saying, I'm thinking, if we're saying it's easier for older couples to say I love you, I don't think they really, I don't know, maybe they do it, they'll hold hands or a pat on the shoulder, but the words themselves?
Yeah, I mean, mature couples do say it a lot, but they have a tendency to say it very quietly and very privately.
In code.
And they say it a lot in code, you're quite right. What I think couples should do is that they should make it more obvious that they are affectionate to one another.
So that the kids learn,
so that the children learn. I remember there was an expert on sex education one time who said, you don't really have to worry too much about teaching them about the plumbing, because they figure that out for themselves.
They know what fits where.
They know what fits. The problem is that you need to show them affection. You need to show them how to be nice to each other as a couple. And a lot of kids grow up not seeing that.
Yeah.
So they actually don't know how to do it. And I'm afraid they get their information from things like the soaps
which
and
are
the
alive,
internet. And it's all a bit weird. The stuff they're learning isn't real.
Now, Now, a colleague believes that saying every day is Valentine is an excuse for those who have no intention of going the extra mile on this occasion. What do you say?
Yeah,
I mean, you heard them saying, the man saying, I love my wife, every day is Valentine's Day.
That it is a cop-out. And I mean, as we've said before, it's not about money. It's about spending just a little bit of time and saying to yourself, what would make my wife, girlfriend's day special? And if you can't bring yourself to find that little bit of time in your life,
there's something
then
wrong
there's
there.
something seriously wrong with you. Yeah, you ought to be able to. And it's not about money, and it's not about the traditional things. It's not about expensive restaurants. It's just about saying the right words and perhaps finding a tiny little gift or doing something special with the evening meal or something like that.
I think you're going to have to give us lessons on saying the right words. I can see a lot of people signing up for that one. Now, I read an article that said as one gets older, the sentimentality and, the mushy things reduce. Do you think that is true? As in the things you do beginning at Valentine's Day, as time ages, you things, it characterizes and changes. You're not as sentimental or as mushy. Oh, I didn't receive roses. Oh, this didn't happen. What would you say? 10 years down the road, people have been together.
Do you know, a lot of people make a bad mistake in relationships, which is to let all that stuff get swamped by the business of living. You know, they get too focused on work, they get too focused on their social life and their mates, they get too focused on their side businesses and
the children.
And the children dominate everything. And they forget that, you know, this person I'm married to is very, very special, and I should make a bit of fuss. And people stop doing it, and it's a sad thing, because the lawyers will tell you that the main reason people split up is all about infidelity and things like that. It's not actually, it's neglect. The main reason I find that people split up is because they've stopped paying attention to one another. And people are beginning to feel lonely, even though they're in a relationship. When a couple come into my counselling room and I hear the word lonely, instantly I know what's going on, because that word tells
So
you
they've
everything.
gotten to the point where they can actually identify it, and they tell you, I am lonely.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, they will. And they'll flesh it out. They'll say that, you know, he doesn't come home until this time in the night, and she's too focused on the children and all the other things. And it all boils down to the fact that they're not spending any time at all with each other and talking together as a couple. And when I say a couple, I mean a romantic couple. You know, so I actually recommend couples that they should, first of all, they should negotiate a bedtime. They should go to bed together at the same time. None of this coming in at 3 in the morning. And whatever time they do decide to go to bed together, they should spend the half hour before that just sitting on the sofa doing nothing except being themselves, being together, listening to a little music and talking and just being romantic. And if you do that every night, then a relationship changes.
Yeah, 21
dramatically.
days a habit make, and things evolve.
Yeah.
Wow. So could we say on the flip side that maybe as they get older, people have more time for each other? Like now, okay, for now you're bickering about the children. The children go off to high school, go off to campus, and you're back alone, the two of you in the house.
Well, yes, it depends. The way that turns out depends on what the main focus of the marriage was. If the main focus of the marriage was on each other, then of course the couple are really quite glad to see the back of the children. They love to see them at the holidays, but the rest of the time, you know,
Go away.
And they do lots of things together, and they start being very happy together again. You know, the stress has diminished somewhat, but there's an awful lot of couples for whom the only thing that's really holding them together is the process of rearing the children. And so the only thing they ever talk about is the children and the children's arrangements and the children's schools. And now when those children leave home, the couple are often completely, you know, they're perplexed. They just don't really know what to do. They're bored with each other. They don't know how to talk to one another. They've hardly had a conversation that didn't involve the children for 10 years. You get the point.
So how do we get them to rekindle? Because maybe that's when they're realizing, oh my, we've been apart. My world was the children, yours was the business. How do we get back to being you and I?
In a perfect world, the couple see it coming. They recognize a few years before the children leave home that this is going to happen. And so they start a process of refocusing on themselves, and they start letting the children go. You know, these days we tend to be too protective of children. We tend to dominate their lives. We helicopter parent, you know. And it's actually better when they get to about the age of 14, 15 to start gently backing off and letting them have their own lives and more lives for yourselves. So you and your wife can now start to do a few more things together. Now you start doing that, then by the time the kids head off to college or wherever they're going, you're really glad, you know, because you've really revved up and you're back on track. If it happens suddenly, it's a little bit like what happens to people when they retire without a plan.
Yes.
You know, now you picture what happens then. You know, the
depression,
poor
lost.
guy gets up in the morning, reads the newspaper,
nowhere
heads
to
to the
go.
bar at 11 a.m. You know, life is really dull. Now it can be like that for couples if they haven't thought it through.
Okay. So what's your opinion, you know, what causes some of this? Why is it that, as you're saying, okay, so far we've said if they have the right foundation as the children grow, they have a happy ever after, so to speak.
Yeah.
What about those who are right now in the middle and are beginning to think this is not working? How do we steer them onto the road to success?
Well, what couples need to recognize is that relationships go through stages.
Okay.
there's all the romance at the beginning.
The excitement.
When you're totally convinced you've met the right person for you, and they can do no wrong, and all the rest of it. And then there's a quite tough phase where you really get to know one another. And
this is after the honeymoon.
After that,
is it usually 5 or 7 years? Everybody
no,
has
I'm thinking
theories.
much earlier. I'm thinking a few months into the relationship.
Okay.
And the couple really get to know one another, and they start to put into place all the behaviors that make for a successful, or maybe not a successful, relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do that well, and of course you end up married and you end up having children.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of couples then get very disillusioned. They suddenly, they're dominated by the everyday
Life.
activities, everyday life, and they take their focus off one another. They need to recognize that they need to work during that phase, and they need to, for example, shed all the illusions about who they think they are. I think I'm so wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Why doesn't my wife love me? Well, maybe I'm not so wonderful. Maybe I should be a bit more realistic about who I am and the way I behave. And she should do the same in thinking of me. And the same thing in reverse. Now, when couples start doing things like that, start accepting each other for who they really are, not who they're supposed to be, suddenly you can be very happy indeed. You think how nice it is to be with someone who loves you for
the bad
person
in you
really are. Yeah. So if couples are doing that during their middle years, when the kids are small, and as they grow,
that's the hardest time, because they
that's the
take
hardest
over
time.
your life.
Yeah. The other thing that a lot of people do, which is a big mistake, is they focus much too much on material success.
Keeping up with the Njoroges and the Otienos.
That's right. And they're always trying to get yet another shilling and
a new car, a new residence.
They don't realise that actually life is much more about enjoying each other's company and doing small things together. You can have a very happy life together on very little money if you have the right set of attitudes. And that's one of the big problems that people create for themselves. In their 30s, they are so focused on making more money,
getting there,
that they lose sight of why they're together.
I think one challenge you've also raised, which I don't know, it takes a while, I don't know if we ever truly get there, is that getting into you to understand you. Because I cannot be a better person until I have appreciated Angela as who I am.
Sure, that's
so
true.
I think maybe that's a challenge. You project on someone else. Chris isn't seeing how good I am because I haven't faced me.
One of the best things you can do is to start looking at your spouse with wide open eyes and realize that they're not perfect, and then say to yourself, I'm okay with that. I'm actually okay with the fact that this person is not the perfect princess that I married. And then you tell them that. And you say to them, I actually love you for who you are. And yes, you do annoy me sometimes, the way you leave your
things hanging, you squeeze the toothbrush and the toothpaste in the middle.
Yeah. But I'm okay with that. And then they start to think, hey, this is really rather nice. I can start liking myself for my imperfections as well. And as the couple grow through that period, acknowledging each other's imperfections and still saying, but I still love you, you're okay. That's what makes it really nice.
Wow, we really need to do a bit of thinking, don't we? Okay, now, some interesting news has just come in. And it seems that the High Court in Pakistan has banned Valentine's Day, calling it immoral and indecent.
Wonderful.
Does that change anything, really?
Nah, well, it shouldn't do. I mean, people should... let's face it, Valentine's Day is not a religious thing. Despite what people say, it is a celebration of the love between two people, and it goes back way before Christianity, for example.
Yes.
And people should just accept that. They should say, this is not about doing anything immoral or stupid. It's about just one day a year, just saying out loud a few of the things you should be saying 365 days a year. But just say them a little louder and make them just that little tiny bit more special. And like I say, you don't have to spend lots of money.
No, we don't.
I mean, for example, my wife and I don't go out on Valentine's night. We hate the high prices and the restricted menus.
So what do you guys do?
So what we will do tonight, for example, is the kids will dress in red. They will be the waiters, and we're going to cook a red-themed meal.
Okay.
So it'll have a lot of red peppers in it, and beetroots and carrots, and you get it.
Tomatoes all nice and yeah,
everything will be very red. And it's just a laugh, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we haven't actually spent any money, really.
No, it's just your usual.
It's
and,
just a meal, but we've made sure we've chosen all the red bits.
and then you dress up for it?
Yeah, we dress up a little bit.
Nice.
Put a nice clean table on and some napkins and get out the better cutlery and stuff like that.
Actually, why do we keep good cutlery? Because you never use it.
Well, you should on Valentine's Day.
Well, and when you have special visitors, I think, my sister was like, we need to just use these things every day. Let the children break them if they will. Now, the other challenge with Valentine's Day is for those of you who have loved ones, it's a wonderful day. For somebody who maybe things went wrong over Christmas, this is a serious day for the blues.
Yeah, I think if you're single on Valentine's Day, and especially if there's been a breakup, I think you just have to, get a couple of DVDs and a big box of chocolates and put the blanket round you, and stay in. I don't think there's anything else you can do, really. I do know a few people who've done some crazy things. I remember a few years ago, a bunch of ladies just commandeered the Regency Hotel. I think they took it over practically, and they had a singles night, an informal singles night, and they were talking till 2 a.m.
I hope it was a weekend.
I don't like to think about that, but
But that's a thought.
Yeah, I've known a few people do that, but that takes a bit of organising, and it's
yes,
a
it
bit
takes
harder.
planning. Yeah.
But I think the best thing to do is to just stay home and watch an interesting movie.
Okay, the ladies will do that. We'll wallow in those nice Sleepless in Seattle and those nice movies. But what do guys do?
The
Why
guys
don't you tell
just
us?
head for the bar and they watch the football. It's a straightforward
Oh
thing.
yes,
for a single
Bernard
guy.
Okumu told me 14 February the football is back.
Yeah,
and I was like,
yeah.
oh wow, I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, no problem for the guys.
Or the guys don't remember that same time last year I was in a relationship. He's relieved he doesn't have to dress up.
He doesn't care. He's just glad in a way that he can be with his mates. But that doesn't work for the ladies.
So he doesn't care. He's okay. Life is good. Oh man, that's tragic. Here I am thinking,
he'll wake up one day and he'll realise that a girlfriend and a wife is worth having. And then he'll start to change. But before that, he just watch football.
So the challenge is with the ladies.
I think it's hard for a lady who's on her own on Valentine's night. So she should just get a nice big box of chocolates and a tub of ice cream.
Hey, no ice cream, my dears. The kilos don't go. The kilos don't go. What about maybe sadly somebody who's lost a spouse for whatever reason, divorced or death?
Well,
that's harder.
I think it's a good idea in things like that, situations like that, to be with your family, to be with your children, and to remember a little bit. There's no point in trying to pretend that something like that's not happened on an important day. I mean, the same sort of thing happens at Christmas, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You feel the same about Christmas and birthdays. We should acknowledge these anniversaries, and we should remember the things we did together, and just relive them a little bit, and get the photographs out and talk about it. I think it's important to do that.
It's just challenging because, being a weeknight like today, you've got homework, you've got what, people need to sleep early.
Yeah, but it doesn't need to take all night.
No.
You can just, for 10 or 15 minutes, you can just sit together and just remember.
So what we're telling people is, one, you need to celebrate Valentine's.
I think so. Personally, I think it's important to acknowledge that it's happening and that you are doing something together with your partner on that day. It doesn't have to involve lots of money. It's romance.
Let's give them some tips. Like we've talked about, Arboretum was a beautiful idea.
Oh, all the sort of things I've mentioned before, making the meal just that little bit special, involving the children if you have children, going out, at sunset, or just sitting somewhere with a glass and getting the photograph album out, all that type of thing. If you're a little younger and a little raunchy, you can play a few games.
Do some dancing.
Yes,
We're watching some
indeed.
serious salsa going on
Yes.
TV.
Yeah.
Get
All
the
that
movie.
sort of
Just do something
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
Find some time alone for the two of
And
you.
say a few important words to one another.
So
Just remind each other that you are special to each other. Of course, a lot of couples propose on Valentine's night. That's quite a production sometimes.
now what happens if somebody's not sure?
Well, first of all,
That
you
is
must be
sticky.
sure. You must be sure. You absolutely must not propose to someone unless you really sure.
No,
they're
I
going
mean
to say
he
it.
could say, yeah, he could say, and maybe you haven't decided. Oh, that would be sticky.
It's important that both the couple are talking about proposing before they do it.
For a while, you don't just wake
This
up.
is not about Valentine's. In general, you don't propose out of the blue. The only people who propose out of the blue have generally got a screw loose, and things will probably go a bit wrong. But yeah, a couple should be talking about getting married as if it was perfectly normal. And then, of course, at some point...
You've crossed the bridge, you're just waiting for the...
Then you have to have the proposal. And then, of course, people do latch on to things like Valentine's night, and they propose. Curiously, the most popular place to make a proposal is home. People actually propose at home. Everybody thinks it's going to be somewhere special, like a big restaurant.
That is true.
But
My
actually-
brothers all did it. They just told us, oh yeah, she said yes. We're like, where were you? At home. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. I know some people who do something faintly more special, like they go to a particular place on their patch, a big tree or something like that, that's going to be there for a very long time, so that they can always remember that that's where it was.
Ah.
You know, other people do things like they go out and they have a meal, but they wander off into the garden of the hotel or something.
Nice.
Like that, and propose there. And then, of course, there are the people who do crazy things and involve the restaurant, you know, and the waiters all get crazy and the photographers turn up. You've got to be very sure that your lady is going to enjoy that.
Yes. She could be a shy one.
Yes,
Could be a reserved
yes, you can't
person.
do that to someone who's shy. But you can have a bit of fun if that's what you like.
Or I'm just remembering my neighbor's son proposed, and for whatever reason that day, she didn't want dessert.
She didn't?
She didn't want dessert, and the ring was to come in and the ring was supposed to come in the ice cream. He was telling her, no, I know you like ice cream. No, I don't want ice cream. Like, please have some ice cream.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. So it's a season of love. But like I like what you said. We need to remember to make this every day.
Yes, really. Yeah. Of course, you remember that there's another little twist. You remember on leap years, the 29th.
Birthdays. Yep.
But you remember that the 29th...
Ladies can propose.
Yes.
But does it really happen?
Not often. But it is possible, and people do it sometimes. It used to be the law in Scotland that a guy who was proposed to and refused would have to pay a fine. Because it was, you know...
It was the 29th of February.
Yeah, on the 29th, if you were proposed to, you had to have a really good excuse.
Hey, the
Otherwise
next
there's
one,
money
if I'm
involved.
still single, I'm going to Scotland.
So now you know what to do.
I know what to do. You must. Oh, wow. I didn't know that. That's interesting. Okay, so that's what we need to do. But I like that. So remind them we need to do this. At least if you've been married in a relationship, it can't just be the 14th. Like we said, remember the anniversaries.
Yes, remember everything. The anniversaries, the wedding anniversary, the birthdays, obviously the children's and Christmas and Valentine's. And you should make an excuse out of every one. You don't regard it as a problem, as an imposition. This is an excuse to just save up a tiny little bit and do a little bit of special, you know what I mean, just to make something a little bit amusing.
Now there's something you said and it's stuck in my head, and I was wondering, you said the challenge like we would have, we're not exactly born in the 90s, is that our parents are a bit old school, so they hardly showed affection to each other. What is it that we need to do now so that the children can see that grown-ups can live in harmony? Because I think, like we said, they mirror what they see.
Yeah.
What are the things we need to start being conscious about that we do around them?
Well, I think for a start, couples should eat together. You know, people tend to graze these days. They wander in, they grab something, they go off to some screen in the corner, and then the other one turns up and does the same, and they end up in different parts of the house. There ought to be one or two rituals in the evening that the children are aware of, like a couple, when they first meet in the evening, they perhaps just sit down and have a cup of tea together for 5 minutes, and then later on the family eats together. And then last thing, the couple are quite obviously going to sit on the sofa for a while, and the kids are aware that they do it, you know.
So they grew up knowing people must spend time together.
Yeah, and then they should see the couple doing small things together, like if they're washing the dishes, you know, they should stand a little closer together, and there should be a little bit of something in the eyes as they look at one another.
Or some footsie under the table.
Yes, exactly. Just do these small things that say to the children, these two like each other. You know, there can be a little bit of coded language that the children don't quite get, and they're a bit mystified.
Yeah, because I
and
remember
annoyed.
seeing that, and you know, you didn't think about it. You know, a pat on the shoulder, hand round the waist,
Yeah.
and you knew, okay, yeah, these guys. And you grew up, and then your shock is when you're told it doesn't happen everywhere.
Right. Well, in a good couple, it does happen all the time. In fact, I often say that good couples are making love 24/7. You know, in little tiny ways that you can hardly detect. There are little smiles and little phrases and little looks. Now that's a very successful couple. When they're doing that, they will be very happy, and they are bringing up their children
To know what life should
know
be
what
like.
it's all
Yeah,
like.
that is important.
Those children will go off and choose the right spouse and treat them well. So you've done a great favor to humanity. If you do
Yeah,
this
just
sort of
by
thing.
a simple pat
Yeah.
on the back.
Yeah.
Or even a squeeze of the behind. Well, strategically done. We saw it. So thank you very much. That is Dr. Chris Hart, psychologist, relationship guru. He's also the author of Single and Searching, How to Find and Marry Mr. Right. You can read his column on the Sunday Nation every week and follow him on Twitter at Cool Kenyan and at www.nyumbayangu.com.
Yeah, and also on Facebook, of course.
On Facebook as
and
well.
There's 3 other books. They're all called Don't Panic, and they're all about how to do life. They're on
And there are 3 books called Don't Panic.
1, 2, and 3.
Oh, okay.
There'll be a 4. There'll be a
Did-
4th soon.
Okay.
But it's all the things that go wrong in life and how to deal with them.
Awesome. Where can they get them?
They can get
your-
that on Amazon.
on
Go
Amazon.
to Amazon. Very
Okay.
cheap. Costs $1.
Well, that's not bad.
Hmm.
Absolutely. So thank you very much. We're definitely going to have you back on something else, and have yourself a happy Valentine.
Thank you. I surely will.